The #1 song, ladies and gentlemen, the Staple Singers.
That's Mavis Staples and the Staple Singers on American Bandstand in 1976. Mavis has been singing since the 1940s. She was nominated for her first Grammy in 1961 and has won 3 in her career. The Staple Singers were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999. The Kennedy Center honored Mavis this month for her contribution to American culture. For the little girl with the big voice from the south side of Chicago, it's been an unforgettable journey. By the time the Staple Singers reached the top of the pop charts in the early 1970s, Mavis Staples had already been singing for nearly 25 years. This is your first publicity photo?
That's Purvis, Pops, Cleety, and Mavis.
A very young Mavis.
A very young Mavis.
Mavis was just 8 when her father, Pops, put together the family band.
And he called us children into the living room, sit us on the floor in a circle. He said, we're going to sing. I just got to heaven.
Mavis, with her deep contralto, would take the lead. Billed as God's greatest hitmakers, the Staples would become stars of the gospel circuit. When did you realize you had something special?
You know, I realized it before we made a record. We would sing in church, and they come up to the pulpit. They come up, and they'd be crying, and they wanted to shake my hand and sing and put money in my hand. You know, that's when I said, I knew I had something.
Something was happening.
Something was going on.
The Staple Singers, based in Chicago, traveled without a rhythm section, just Pops on guitar.
Elvis Presley told me, and then he said, I like the way your father's guitar sound. I said, well, thank you. He said, yeah. It's a nervous guitar. He plays a nervous guitar.
Another king admired the group's music. In the early 1960s, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. invited the Staple Singers to travel with him.
We're the people that will not stop until they have full freedom and human dignity.
Their music would become the soundtrack to his civil rights crusade.
I walked beside Dr. King and I sang songs for him. You know, that makes me proud.
In 1964, the Staples were invited to the Newport Folk Festival, which introduced them to a broader audience.
One more time for the Staple Singers.
But things really changed in the late 60s, when their new label, Stax Records, put a rhythm section behind it. And in 1972, I'll Take You There took them to #1. How did it feel when you suddenly broke mainstream?
You know, it felt good. We were finally being heard. Let me take you there.
Mavis's distinctive voice continues to attract all-star collaborators.
You're not alone.
Wilco's Jeff Tweedy produced a Grammy-winning album for her. Before that, Prince wrote 2 albums for her. And before that, another songwriter had an even stronger attraction to Mavis. Is this the Mavis that Bob Dylan fell for?
Well, Anthony, why you want to do that? See, you made me sigh. But now Dylan fell for this Mavis.
That Mavis.
Yeah.
Folk songs and more folk songs.
It was 1962. They met on a television show.
Bob Dylan, the Staple Singers.
Dylan would propose, Mavis would decline. Did you ever explain to him why you turned him down?
I told him we were too young.
But this past summer, Dylan invited Mavis to open for him on tour.
I said, I'm so glad to see you. I've been wanting to see you, Bobby. I've been wanting to see you for so long. If you'd married me, you would have seen me every day. I say, oh, don't do me like that.
Singer-songwriter Mavis Staples.
Mavis Staples' remarkable, nearly 7-decade career was honored this month at the Kennedy Center.
With her music, she serves God with all her soul and yet is herself a goddess of soul.
For Mavis, the only thing missing was her father. What do you think Pops would make of you winning the Kennedy Center honor?
I tell you, he'd have that twinkle in his eye. Mavis, girl, they honoring you. I was last in...
Pop Staples died in 2000.
That was the hardest time in my life.
For the one true vine.
You and Pops are together singing for 50 years?
Yeah, over 50 years.
Wow.
And he would tell me, Mavis, you don't have to sing loud. You don't need no gimmicks. Sing from your heart. What comes from the heart reaches the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, Daddy. And I go in that dressing room, I say my little prayer. I go to my heart and start singing. That's the best advice he could ever have given me. Sing from your heart.
Mm-hmm. Works every time.
It works every time.
At 77, Mavis still tours regularly, and she can still raise the roof and bring down the house. You can get a ticket. Go, because she's a man.
Bravo, Anthony.
I know.
I tell you, half the fun of the Kennedy Center Honors was watching her. Talk about a twinkle in her eye.
Yeah.
She was so in the moment and so loving every single thing that was happening.
She was so honored to be there.
Yeah,
and,
you could feel that.
It meant so much to her, after all this time.
And Bob Dylan and Mavis Staples. Have you heard that, Nora?
Well, you saw those pictures of young Mavis. She'll tell you,
like
she was
they
hot.
were like a couple?
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
Bob went to Pops and said, I want to marry Mavis.
Wow.
And Pops said, you got to talk to Mavis.
Wow.
And Mavis said no.
That is one of the best things about the Kennedy Center Honors.
Yeah,
Not only is it recognized as a lifetime achievement, but the interviews that we get to do and learn. And her relationship with her father. Think about that, spending half a century alongside
Your dad.
From your heart.
Yeah.
It's interesting because she's honored by Bonnie Raitt at the Kennedy Center, who also had a really close relationship with her dad. And Bonnie said that's one reason, Mavis and I bonded was, it's with that relationship with their fathers.
I liked her before, and now I like her even more.
Yeah.
She's so sparkly
Yeah,
at
she's
77.
amazing.
Oh, wow. That was
all right, tomorrow we'll hear from Kennedy Center honoree Al.